Hey everybody, I'm Yvonne with Back to Earth Creations, and in this video I want to show y'all how to make this style of wire wrapped necklace or bracelet or whatever. What the whole concept here is the herringbone wire wrap weave, which we can see here, but I want to show you how to do it with memory wire as the core. And how to do it in one continuous wire line, so you're not having to like snip it and then restart your wire. So while this could be considered a beginner friendly technique, I don't know if I'd recommend it for your very first project if you're brand new to any sort of crafting, but it is definitely like mid to late beginner project. That way, like, you know, kind of if you're ready to ease into the intermediate realm of kind of taking foundational techniques and building upon them. So that being said, let's get our wires and our pliers and get started. All the tools and materials for this project should be listed down in the video description, but I will be introducing them as they're needed throughout the project. I wanted to start by showing y'all some of the different examples of what we can do with this project. So here you can see we have a necklace made, both of these actually are made on 16 gauge copper core, like this is silver plated craft wire from parawire.com. So if you do not have memory wire or you don't care for memory wire, you can totally use other things. Now this one here is much more an example of what we'll be making, where it is on the memory wire, but with the way that we do the coiling and just the nature of the piece in general, even though it's on memory wire, you can still kind of shape and affect it a little bit more than just as if it were, you know, just strung beads on memory wire. So now that being said, you could use a wide variety of different bead sizes and wire gauges. So this one here, we did the wrapping in 22 gauge wire, and this one here, I do believe we used 20 gauge. And that's with the 16 gauge core wire. So this is a wonderful opportunity for variation and different ways for your own taste and style to come through. Now here I'd used 8mm round beads, and these other ones are made with some of our homemade lampwork glass rondel beads. If I were to make this project, gosh, you could make it with the core, with the 20 gauge memory wire core. I have gone as small as using 4mm beads with a 24 gauge wire to do the herringbone, and I really liked that. Especially I was using the much smaller, like the bracelet sized memory wire. This is the necklace size that I'm using here. Again, it'll be linked down below, but with the 4mm beads, it made a really cute hoop earring, and I had made like a matching pair of those. And then, gosh, you could go just as large as you wanted. You know, if you're using a very large bead, you could use a very large wire, or mix and match large beads with thin wire or small beads with thick wire. If you're new into wire wrapping, the wire gauge, the number is indicative of the size, and the larger the number, the thinner the wire. So a size 16 wire, you can see, is quite thick next to this 20 gauge, and a size like 28 or 30 wire is very, very fine. So just to try to catch you up on that. Now, if you order some of our handmade beads, this is how you can expect for them to come to you, just kind of strung up on a piece of 18 gauge wire, or, you know, whichever gauge it is safe to cut with just regular wire snips. We never send them out on like memory wire or anything like that, but they'll just be strung up, usually either gradiated if it's one of our pre-made sets, or if you custom order your beads, because we do have sets up for sale, as well as where you can just custom order, like if you want them all the same size, or if you want, you know, each bead to be a different style, you can order them separately like that. And if you're interested in seeing how we hand make our lampwork glass beads, you can check us out Saturdays on Kick. We live stream. Currently, that's the day that we do it on, but the best thing to do would be to go to backtoearthcreations.com, and down at the bottom of our homepage, we have a calendar that shows all of our events. And if you're interested in watching lampworking, or if you're interested in one of our other live streams or our shop updates or our tutorials, you can actually RSVP to them for free and get a reminder email. And you can also sign up for our weekly newsletter. And all of that is at backtoearthcreations.com. So this one here is representative of our full necklace set done in our plain beads. You can see it's just a single color all the way through. And so this one here is one of our plain beads done where there's a white core, which adds a little bit of like a nice like milky opaqueness to it. These are some of our gravity beads, our 2-color gravity beads that have been wire wrapped in a vintage bronze. These ones I'd gotten from Potomac Beads. It's like a dark topaz 8mm glass. And then these ones here are one of our sets of bubble beads, where we trap the little air bubble in there, and these are so much fun to make. So all of that being said though, let's go ahead and get started on our project. So we're going to start out by picking our core material, and today I am going to be using this 20 gauge stainless steel memory wire, but you could use whatever material that you like. When I'm not using this, I do enjoy using, sorry, I'm trying to find my loose end, there we go. I do enjoy using the 16 gauge wire. And decide if you're making a bracelet or if you're making a necklace, like kind of figure out how long you think you'd like it to be. Typically whenever I make bracelets, I make them around 7 to 9 inches in length, just depending. And then whenever I make necklaces, sometimes I'll do a little bar section like this, and sometimes I'll do a full like choker style necklace wrap. So I think I'm going to be wrapping these beads today. So I'm going to let this relax, and I'm just going to cut right here, and we'll measure out and see how long that is. Now, when I'm using memory wire, they do not kid around, y'all. Use those memory wire cutters or some bolt cutters or something that do not use the usual, even my super durable wire snips from the electrical section. I do not want to use them on this because it's going to mar up the jaws of them. So that will be something that you'll want to watch out for. Or for the longest time, I had old wire cutters, not memory wire cutters, but just regular ones that I had goobered up cutting memory wire, and then those were just my crap ones forevermore until I had ruined the entire length of the jaws. I just kept cutting memory wire with those ones. So let's see, how long is this? This is about 11 inches of our memory wire, and I'm going to be doing my wrapping today with a 20 gauge antique copper. And I'm just going to take the end off of my beads here. That's how I like to store them as a set, is just kind of on their wire. That way I don't have to measure or really think or worry about it. I can just kind of get to crafting. And so yeah, here you can see from the side, these ones have that little white opaque core. And I think it does a really nice job of kind of hiding the stringing material on the inside. Now that we've picked our core material, we get to decide, we've picked our core material, and I'm going to be putting some little beads on either end of my lampwork glass rondels, because we could just leave them long like that, but I'm going to try it with a slightly different style. These plated beads will be down in the video description. But I really like the gradiated set. So once you've picked your stringing material, you've picked your beads and bead combinations, and you've picked your wire, now we get to choose if we want to do a continuous herringbone, because all of this was done with one length of wire, or we can do segments. Now I'm going to be showing you how to do the continuous length today, but the segment tutorial would be just like And I'll have this linked up on the screen here. But we would just be making the herringbone exactly as we do in that linked video, which is our masterclass on the herringbone wrap. And then we would just be sliding it onto our core material. But what's cool about this one is there are only two ends. There's the starting end and the finishing end. There is no wire in between to get snagged on anything. You can really see it on this one with the colors kind of pop, and that's the inside, and it's that cross wire gets us to where it's continuous. Now we do have an option that we can choose here, because if you can see the very slight difference between this doesn't have a coil underneath it, this does. And that'll make sense here in a minute, because what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start you off on the coil. You do not have to do the coil, but I think it gives it a really nice option. And so I am just working off the spool, and what I mean by that is I have not snipped the wire, and I'm going to keep a little bit of tail wire here, and I'm just going to make coils around our memory wire. And so there I have done 10. And now you could use whatever plier of choice that you like to use for this, but I'm going to be using my bent nose because I do like to kind of get in there. And I'm just going to grab, I probably could have gotten away with doing this a little sooner. There we go. I'm just hooking on either end of the coil and just squeezing it together, and that does a really good job of compressing those wires together. There we go. Oops, and I just want to make, it's a little cumbersome using this very thin 20 gauge core to be wrapping, you know, another 20 gauge wire around, but that's okay. It's good to be challenged. And I've completely lost count, but that's all right. Now I'm going to want to do about 5 coils per segment. And if I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 beads, then I'll need 45. And so I'm going to do like 55 just to give myself some extras. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's call that 15. So now I'm going to come in here and I'm going to grab the end and I'm just going to scooch it down. 15. And now I'm going to hold right here so it's easier on my hand. There's 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Now this is actually one of my favorite ways of making a very basic but very cool. Oh, I've lost count again. Well, I'm just going to go a bunch. But you could do this for the whole length of your entire bracelet or necklace, and it gives a really cool look for like if you're doing stacked bracelets or something like that. But just using the memory wire as the core wire for the piece can be pretty neat, you know, especially if you can picture that kind of, you know, just as part of like a stacked bracelet or with other beads on it. And if this is hard on your hands, perhaps a 22 gauge wire might be a little more manageable. And we're just wrapping around. It's okay if there's a little bit of space in there. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm gonna kind of bring those ends, like trying to squish it. So again, I don't know how many that is, so we're just gonna keep going. I'm gonna zoom in a little so that you can see how it is that we're doing these coils, and I'm just trying to make sure that the wire lands next to the previously placed wire. And this will improve with practice, I promise you. If you're very messy or very inconsistent to start with, don't sweat it. Just be patient with yourself, be patient with the project, and you'll get the hang of it. Practice, practice, practice. Patience, practice, and persistence will get you where you are going. And the nice thing about it is, you know, if you're like me and you enjoy some wire wrapping challenges and all, you know, if you're passionate about it, the practice feels like play. It doesn't feel like a burden or a chore to be doing. So I'm going to do just a little bit more. And we're going to go ahead, I'm going to snip that wire from the spool because you can see how my situation was getting all kind of bunched up. That's all right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know why I'm counting now after, you know, all that. There we go. Just coil, coil, coil. And you can see it's starting to spread on me, but that's okay. I'm putting my pliers on here tight enough that they can still wiggle, like slide along that core, but tight enough that they catch the end of the wire. Ooh. Now normally that would have worked for me, but this is a really stiff wire, so that my coils are just gonna be as they are. The good news is though, is these are gonna be hidden, so that's okay. Now something we want to avoid is the wire bunching back on itself like that. And if that happens, we'll just get in here and we'll kind of uncoil it. And then I'm going to hold it with my pliers because it makes it easier on my hands. And we're just going to try to coil it back down. There we go. And now from here, still holding with my pliers in my left hand, I can take another pair of pliers and compress that down. And if it's a little bumpy and weird, that's okay. We can just take it and kind of cinch it in the same direction that we were already going. Now, I don't want to be death gripping this too hard because it can really squish your wire, but that's just some troubleshooting. Okay, so I'm just going to grab that. I'm going to pull that down just a little more, and we're going to finish up that coil. Just because if I don't use this wire that I'm coiling right now, if I don't use all of it on this project, I can use it for something else as well. It's always a good opportunity to get some more coil practice in. And again, if your fingers are hurting or your knuckles are cramping, do not hesitate to use your tools. Now these are just some like glitter line, bead along, pliers that I made the handles for to make them a little more ergonomic out of thermoplastic. And I had done that ages and ages ago. So it holds up really well. And we're going to continue just bringing that around. It's okay if it looks a little rough. We'll figure it out. Okay. Now I do prefer my wider jaw pliers for this. Oh, you know what would be a good one to hold it with? Our nylon jaw pliers. And that way we can squeeze it and it's not going to bite in because the metal is stronger than the nylon. Ooh, but then we do really have to squeeze it though. That's okay. Bringing that in, giving it a squish. Now you'll want to be careful because sometimes the wire, even this stiff memory wire, will do what I call jackknifing, which just to demonstrate with these two wires, if I'm trying to squish in, that's a jackknife. See how it zigzagged like that? And it's not the end of the world when something like that happens, but it is a lot easier to get out on this copper core wire than it is the stainless steel stuff. So I'm feeling all thumbs today, but that's okay. So if that happens, we just take our nylon jaw pliers, change which direction we're sliding from, and it's not perfect, but it's straightened back out. So now we can take this coil that we've done, and I'm going to grab our core wire. Oof. And And I'm going to pull just a little at a time. There we go. I'm going to put our nylon jaw pliers right here. Out of frame. There we go. It's starting to come off. There we are. Now you be careful that this doesn't hurt the inside of your hand. There we are. Ooh, and that distorted it just a little bit, but I don't mind. So now we have our coil, and I'm going to be honest with you. This was a lot easier to do when I was coiling around the 16 gauge core. But we get to choose our battles sometimes. So now I'm going to count back, and I'm going to zoom in for this. So I'm counting, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In there on that 5th one, I'm going to give it a snip. And I want to catch it to make sure I don't drop that. So we've got, that's the little coil. So now I'm going to go, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to snip and set it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Snip. How many of these did we need? Like 9? 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Ooh. That's normally why I put my finger over it. I'm not trying to hide what I'm doing. I'm just trying to keep the thing from pinging across the room. 2, 3, 4, and 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Ooh, one more. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. There we are. And so now if we have a little segment like that, we can take it and we can just hold it in our fingers. Nope, holding it in our fingers doesn't work for smushing it either. I was hopeful. Zooming back out. So now, okay, now it's really going to start coming together, y'all. So we are going to take one end of our memory wire, and I want to just make our loop. And I'm going to use my round nose pliers. And I'm going to coil around, there's once, and I'm using a quite small part of the tip of my pliers, and twice. So I've made a little, we're going to zoom back in so you can see what's up. So I've made 2 loops, and I've made sure that it ends with the end of my wire right there. That way it'll be in line with everything that I'm doing and shouldn't be getting snagged on anything. So now from here, we are going to coil 5 coils. So I started with about 1 inch of wire hanging off. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We're gonna snip that end nice and flush. And we're going to pull this all the way around, flush to the end of what we're doing. Now this is a great opportunity. Yes, to tidy up those coils. So we've pushed that all the way to the end. And now I'm going to slide on, let's do these 4mm. And you could use other gemstone beads. You could use, I mean, all sorts of whatever you want, you can do. And so I'm going to thread on, boop, boop, boop. Because I wanted to do like a nice mixed metal tone. And the mandrel size, you're actually able to choose your hole size on the custom beads that we make, but my smallest mandrel is like 1/16 of an inch, and there's usually around a millimeter of variation because of the bead release that I use. So having a bead on either end like this really helps me on these style of beads to keep it kind of, I don't know, I just like the way it looks. So if you're using just one bead, treat it like it's just one bead. The technique remains the same. So right now we're staying on the top of the wire as opposed to the bottom of the wire. The bottom is what's away from me, the top is what's towards me. And so I have that wrapped around to the top. Wrapped around to the bottom would have looked like this. Do you see how it went from the top to the bottom? And that's just not how we get a consistent herringbone. Like, I always hesitate to say that something's wrong in wire wrapping because it's not wrong, it's just a different technique. So to get the herringbone, it's pretty important to keep that wire there on top. And I'm just going to be twisting that around. I really like having enough space that my memory wire isn't getting hung up on everything. So that's one little twisty. And now we're going to continue this around to the other side. Oh no, y'all, I forgot. If you wanted to do it the way I was doing on these other ones, you would just continue like that. But I'm going to undo the coil that we had done. Not the coil, but the wrap, because we need to add the coil. And this is going to give us the same size core to wrap onto. I hope it didn't distort my coils too much to be snipping them. Let's try an easier one. There we go. And it just slides on. And now that we've got it slid on, I'm going to go ahead and give it that squish. And we're going to pull that all the way down. There we go. And that's what I'm going to be wrapping on top of. So there's one. And I'm just going to straighten that out. It's okay if your wire's getting a little wonky. Like, don't let the fine details hang you up. Okay, so there's one complete wrap of the herringbone. And I've done the full wrap around, and now it's coming out this side again. And now we'll stack this wire behind the first one. Now we're doing this for the whole bracelet, y'all, so hang with me. And then we're wrapping it around. And then coming around, again, stacking behind. There's two. Wrapped. And let's do a third one. And then that comes around that side there. We're back to where we had started, doing that full wrap. And now if you wanted, you could snip here and then just start again, you know, and kind of have them be one link at a time and just push it up onto the thing. But again, I really like that continuous concept. So I'm just crossing over the back this time. And we can get in here. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And now let's do another 4mm bead. And then the next size up. So this is a 5 by 10. I think this is a 6 by 11 millimeter. of our handmade beads. And then I'm going to thread on that coil. And I do enjoy just holding it with my little pliers and pressing it through like that. And then we can get in here and straighten that up a little bit more. Smush any pokey ends that are sticking out, and then we're just going to slide that right on down. There we go. And if this is the front of the wire design, I want the wire on the front to start with here. And so we're just going to come around, making sure that we're on the coil that we've added. And because see, if it's not on there, the coil just kind of wants to run off. But that's okay. There we go. And then wrapping around the side. Wrap. And then again, making sure that we're stacking behind right there. There's wrap. No, my coil popped out. Sometimes I wonder if the coil struggle is worth it. Sometimes I feel like it is, sometimes I feel like it isn't. But I wanted to give you all that option because I know that there's folks out there who would just be driven straight up bonkers that and that don't match perfectly. So if you want them to match perfectly, this is one of the ways of getting there. So there's 2 and 2. And then coming around. And we're kind of just hiding that coil underneath it. Like underneath the herringbone wrap. And just wrapping around again. So that was our third. So now we're going to do that crossover. Well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And now, let's see, for my largest bead, I'm going to do a 6mm on either side of it. And then for this one, I'm going to do a 5mm. So for this one, I'm still doing a 4mm. So we're going to thread that on, thread on our bead, thread on another 4mm. Whoop. So by adding the coils and adding the additional beads, I've made this design a little bit more complex than, you know, what it needs to be. So you can definitely simplify it down. And typically I simplify it down and then I'll just already have my core wires with the ends kind of finished. Like let's say if I were making a whole mess of these bracelets, what I would do is some prep work at home where I'd do the end like this, thread on the number of beads, which for an 8mm, we used 9 beads to make a bracelet. So I'd have threaded on my 9 or 10 beads, and then I'd have finished the other end with a little bit more space than what I needed, and then I can sit in the car on a long car ride, like not if I'm driving, but or just any time that you want your hands busy, you can just grab out your spool of wire and your core and then just do this weave, and you don't have to be juggling a bunch of pliers. And it's just, I have very fond memories of one of the Black Fridays that we were in line at the Walmart to get, like, I don't know, we were going to get a business laptop, and it was like a Black Friday sale, and we sat and waited for like hours and hours until the time was right. But this was a project that I had with me, and I got like 11 or 12 of these bracelets done, just sitting there waiting, chit-chatting with the other people in line and just hanging out. But we're going to continue around. And you could always add in the additional design element of this one has 3 wraps. Maybe we wanted this one to have 4, and then 5, and then 6, and then 7, and then 6 and 5 and 4 and 3. So that adds, gosh, I love stuff with a nice gradient like that. So again, the techniques remain the same, but the variation that can be added just by your own artistic eye are infinite. So I'm really, really interested to see what y'all make with this design. If you'd like to share your work with us, you can do #craftalongwithvon, and that's if you use any of our beads or follow any of our tutorials. We would love to see what you make, and love to see you share it with our community, because not to brag, but we do have the coolest community, I do think. So I'm like super honored to get to rub elbows with y'all. And so there we are. That's our 3rd bead in, and we've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we're going to thread on our 5mm bead. Boop and boop. And just sliding that down. And then I'm going to do another one of these coil segments. There we go, sliding it all the way down, making sure it's crossing over so that that's the front. I want it to be on the front. And then coming in. And I'm just using my finger here to to kind of pin. Yeah, prop everything into place, pin it into place, just holding it. So there's 1. And then coming around, again keeping it on the front, and there's 2, and there's 1 for the second one, bringing it around, 2 for the second one. And you could add some really neat variation and stuff to this, like if you wanted on the next coil out, or on the next, like either the 2nd or the 3rd even, we could put a coil around this wire. We could start including some other weaving, like we could string beads on it, like so many different variations, you guys. 1, 2, and 3. That's our 3rd wrap, taking it around that away. I'm going to give us a little bit more room off the spool, and now I'm actually going to zoom out. That way you can see how I'm interacting in relation to my spool. I'm mostly using my wrist to hold down that excess wire, but this way I don't have to like be having a whole bunch pulled off the spool all at once. Okay, so now we're going to go, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm going to make sure, yeah, that it's just going the correct way. Y'all, this is the largest bead, and then we'll start the decrease. So I'm going to do a 6mm, and then our big bead, and then a 6mm, and we're going to thread on a little bit of coil. A person may be tempted to use like a bugle bead or something. I do not recommend that, because glass bugle beads as the core, like bugle beads in general don't do well on memory wire, in my experience. If you've had a different experience, let us know down in the comments. Okay, that one's not fitting. In today's episode, will it fit? Stay tuned to find out. So what's happened here is whenever I snipped, I'm suspicious that whenever I snipped the coils, it kind of crimped the end in and has just made it really kind of tricky to fit our core wire back in. So I may have had an easier time, and in the future I may do this, coiling my coils around an 18 gauge wire. Oh, there it goes. That way it's just a little easier to thread on that coil when it's all said and done. And then once it's on there, to tighten it down, because it would be a little baggy, you know, not be holding everything into place. Well, what I would do is I would just crimp it there with my pliers and then cinch it by kind of twisting in the same direction. Now I'm going to come around to this way, and we're going to crimp it in that direction as well. Just making sure everything's tucked in and nice and smushed. But yeah. Whoop. Oh, these beads have such large holes. They just slide right over. Well, heck. That's okay though, because once we have our coil in place, we can start our herringbone pattern, and that's going to make everything sit right where it's supposed to. So there's one coming around, and there's two coming around, and there's three. Now, for the sake of time on this tutorial, I am going to finish the other side off camera. But it's literally, y'all, it is just repeating what we had already done, but just around the rest of the way. And so I will meet y'all back here to show you how to finish the ends on the other end. So again, we do that wrap, and then I'm going to do the crossover, and we'll do our 5 coils. 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, whenever I'm going to meet y'all when we put on the last bead, because we'll have finished and we won't be doing those 5 coils when we get to that far end. Alrighty, so now that we are here at the end, I am just going to do our last wrap to bring it up to 3 on this side. And this would be, I mean, you could go, I'm not going to say forever, but you could go as long as you want to make however long as you'd like of a necklace. In fact, I'm wondering if we might not be able to do this over like a snake chain or something of the sort, like or like a round chain. But I'm real interested to see what y'all do with this, because I think there's a lot of potential for some really interesting designs here. So we're going to do that last crossover, and then I am just going to finish it with a wrap. So just to zoom in so you can see exactly what's going on, we did that last crossover and then wrapped around once to completion, like so it's a complete loop, and then I'm just going to give it a little snip. Whoop. And then I'm going to squish that down. Smoosh. And that's how our end is looking. Right there you can kind of see it's kind of nice and tucked in almost. And now from here, we can take our memory wire cutters, and I've given us about 20 millimeters. And we are going to, on the same part of our plier nose as what we had done before, on the other end, we are going to make our little spiral, bringing it in, stacking it on the nose of our pliers, and then there we have at the end. You can see they're not exactly the same size, but they're pretty close. And from here, I'm going to zoom out, and we can start kind of posing our necklace, like, yeah, just however we want everything situated. On a bracelet, I like it when the beads are sitting faced very outward. And in fact, you can see the way that I finished this bracelet is we used 18 gauge 3/16 aluminum rings from this kit that's linked down in the video description, and one of these 9x14 stainless steel lobster claw clasps, which I really like, even though they're a little tricky for a bracelet. It's still doable, and it's large enough that my husband can help me. But you could use magnetic ends if you're into that. Whatever kind of clasp that you like, you can do that. And I even think it's really cute to do like a little charm or something off the end of the bracelet like that. But on bracelets, I like for the beads to be facing out, whereas for a necklace, I like for it to sit, you know, kind of with the herringbone facing more forward, you know, kind of in this manner where it's presented forward nicely. And to do that, I'm just kind of squishing everything around with my fingers. There's not like a specific special tool for squishing it until it looks pretty. But that's a big part, for me at least. For the majority of my career as a wire wrapping artist, I just smush it till I like how it looks. So if I can do it, you can do it. We've got this, guys. But the memory wire sets a nice defined curve to our necklace, and then from here we could attach chain, we could do bead strung necklace, we could do more bead links, like wire wrapped links if we wanted. Over here on these guys, what I did is I just threaded some chain through the big loops on the ends. That way, if I sell this out of my booth, I have enough chain here that I could reduce it down to one length of chain. But I liked how it looked with the 2 lengths. And then I finished it off with a little stainless steel ring, and we have some extender chain here in the back. That way this will hook anywhere that we like along that chain to make it adjustable. Now on the 16 gauge wire, I can pose it quite easily. So if somebody wanted this as a bracelet too, it's very easy for me to take these off, and I can just shape this around to be a bracelet, which I think would look super cool as well. Whereas with our memory wire, this one's a little long to be, oh, I don't know, I'd wear it as a bracelet. And again, with a little bit of strategic squishing, we could bring this around into a really nice bangle. But I think I'm really gonna like it as a necklace. So that is how to make the continuous herringbone wire wrap, and I think they're just gorgeous, y'all. Hey y'all, thanks so much for hanging out with me during this video. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas, please leave them down below. I love hearing from you guys. I love suggestions for more tutorials that you guys are interested in. We're currently taking requests for if there are more tutorials, or not more, but well, yes, more tutorials, but also if there's any of our older tutorials that you're interested in seeing a remake of, hopefully with a little higher, you know, production quality, but we'll see how that goes. Maybe a little more staying in frame. But so that being said, leave a comment down below if you follow along with any of our tutorials or use any of our handmade beads or fused glass cabochons that we sell at backtoearthcreations.com. Shameless self-promotion. You can tag us, hashtag craft along with Vaughn, or do the @ and Back to Earth Creations, and that'll tag us on whatever social media of your choice. But I think that's everything. Sign up for our free newsletter so you don't miss out on our Monday recap emails that also have some juicy coupons in them. And I think that's everything, y'all. So good luck. I do hope that this was helpful to you. And until next time, you guys, thank you and happy crafting. Mwah. Bye.